Today, we're going to be talking about homeowners builders risk. There's a lot of construction going on out there, and there's some things that are important for you to know if you're going to be utilizing builders risk while you have your home constructed. Hope you enjoy. If you're looking at building a house, one of the things that you'll typically have to deal with is builder's risk. And builder's risk insurance is somewhat like homeowners insurance, but it's a little bit different. And it's important to understand what some of those differences are. There are a number of different ways you can build a house. In some cases, you may have somebody come in and do it, and they may provide the builder's risk. That's a little bit unusual, but we do see it from time to time. In most cases, the builder's coming and building, but it's your responsibility to have the protection, since you own the property, to protect that structure as it's being built. So when you think about, what's the purpose? Well, with builder's risk, what you're trying to do is you're trying to protect that structure as it is raised up. So if you think about a situation might be you got the house framed up, or your contractor does, so it's all blacked in, maybe halfway there, it's halfway to completion, and a storm comes through and blows it all down. Well, if you don't have builder's risk, you have to start back all over again, and you've already got the debt that was incurred from it being built up to that point. Now you got to start back from ground zero. What a builder's risk is designed to do is it's going to put you back where you were. So wherever that, whatever point that home had gotten to as it relates to where it was in construction phase, the builder's risk is going to bring you back to that point. So you're protecting the structure. There's also some premises liability coverage that can protect you as it relates to being the property owner, but it does have restrictions. So rather than focus primarily on what it does, one of the key components that I think is to understand what it doesn't do. So when it comes to your standard builder's risk, a lot's going to depend on the carrier that you're dealing with. For example, some carriers will offer coverage for material that hasn't actually been included in the construction yet. So if you had lumber sitting out there ready to go, stacked in the yard, or other items, some will offer endorsements where you can get coverage for that. Others will not. Some builder's risk contracts will say we only provide coverage once the structure can be secured, like with locked doors, and the items that are protected are the things that are inside that locked structure. So again, in that scenario, that lumber stacked out in the yard would not be covered. There are a lot of little nuances when as it relates to builder's risk, and it's really important for you to ask questions. Another thing that I always try to stress with people when they're looking at builder's risk is the liability coverage. That liability coverage will not address a worker, one of the construction workers, getting hurt on your property. So if you have a contractor out there and he's got carpenters, and those carpenters are framing the house, and one of them falls off of the roof, they're putting trusses up and gets hurt, your homeowner's liability or builder's risk liability will not cover that. It is specifically excluded. So it is extremely important that you make sure whoever the contractor is, or anybody that comes on your property, that they have workers' comp insurance. Because if they've got workers' comp, it'll take care of it. But if that employee gets hurt and the contractor says, well, we don't have workers' comp, it's too expensive, then ultimately the liability, the responsibility for that damage or that injury to that worker falls to the property owner, and that's you. So it's extremely important to make sure, and the way you make sure that is you ask them for a certificate of insurance. And that verifies that they have a policy, that policy is in force. So if that injury does occur, you would be in a position where you're protected. So if you decided to contract it yourself, you would want to make sure the carpenters had workers' comp. If there are plumbers out there, you'd want to make sure they have workers' comp. You want to make sure anybody that's coming on your property has workers' comp and general liability coverage. And then that way, that gives you a layer of protection. Otherwise, you are completely exposed and you're responsible for any of those things. So if you have questions related to builder's risk or anything along that line, don't hesitate to give Terry or myself a call here at Westside Advisors and Insurance Services. I hope you have a great week.